Welcome back to this week's edition of Modern Tech and Transformation. I'm very excited to have the Chief Financial Officer of Resolve Tech Solutions with us today, Sebastian Palufo. Welcome, Sebastian.
Thank you for having me.
We talk a lot about software and tech and services, and with that comes IT spend. So we wanted the perspective of a CFO on this topic. So I want to thank you again for being here. And since you have not been on the podcast, tell us a little bit about your background and what brought you to being a CFO.
Well, all my life I tried to learn the skills necessary to become a CFO, right? And I say I've been trying to learn to be a CFO since kindergarten, right? So I was lucky enough to work in big firms to learn about taxation, accounting, FP&A, and other aspects of the finance function to become the CFO that I am now. However, besides all those financial skills, you also need to learn other things about the company, like marketing, sales, HR, and so on, right? And I was lucky enough to know great chief revenue officers and chief marketing officers and so on that helped me to understand these different functions to become the CFO that I am now.
Well, we are very lucky to have you at Resolve Tech Solutions. And with that being said, as a CFO, when the organization you're working for is evaluating IT services and solutions, what are some key factors you take into consideration?
Well, number one is the strategy of the company, right? Sometimes you need a new solution or an investment in technology because you need to make improvements to your product. Sometimes you need to increase operational efficiency in your sales team, in your finance team, and so on, right? So first of all, you need to make that decision, that assessment, what you need and why you need it, right? That's number one priority and should be aligned with the strategy of the business. Number two, you have to make an assessment of the return on investment. Sometimes the return on the investment, it's related to savings or productivity, or sometimes some other intangible returns. And the other thing that you need to keep in mind is the scalability and flexibility of the solution that you are going to invest. Because this solution works for this volume of transactions, but if you are planning to grow very quickly in a few years, probably it's not the right solution for that future volume. So you have to think about not only what you need now, but also what you will need in a couple of years from now. The other thing is security and migration, right? Because, nowadays we are under the mercy of all these cyber attacks. So you have to make sure that you achieve these security issues and concerns. And the other thing is migration, because you have large volumes of that data that need to go from one place to another. So you have to consider how you are going to have that migration. Speaking about, security risk, you also have to assess risk mitigation, right? Every time that you are handling large volumes of data, you have to be careful with confidentiality and so on, right? Depending on your business, of course, but you have to keep that in mind. Then the total cost of ownership, right? We are in finance, we can afford what we can pay, right? We cannot go beyond our means. So sometimes when you are making a decision of investment in technology, you really need to make sure that it is the right size and you can pay for that, right? The other thing is how this solution, this investment will integrate with the other technology that you have in your ecosystem. And that's extremely important. Generally speaking, nowadays, there are great tools that help you to do integration, but it's something that you need to consider. You need to make a serious consideration about how are going to integrate all these in my ecosystem of solutions. And last but not least, it is important that you are going to do an assessment of reputable vendors, because you don't want to discover then one day that your vendor is out of business. So you really need to get a reputable vendor and also in the process, get references.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So in your role, have traditionally the CIO or the IT orgs rolled up to CFOs, or have you seen it both ways?
Not in my experience, but I've seen it in organizations that I work for,
Mhm.
where the CIO and the CTO reported to the CFO.
So we covered a lot about evaluating, but once things are evaluated, what are the challenges that come into play when you're trying to implement these solutions or making sure there's that ROI?
Yeah, well, the challenges is not doing everything that we just discussed, right? So that's when the problems start. So not having strategy, that's a problem, because if you don't have a strategy, you're going to try to do everything together, and that is setting yourself for failure. So that is one of the key things, that you need to have a roadmap. You need to have a plan. You need to prioritize. You cannot do like 3, 4 implementations at the same time, because you don't have the resources, you don't have the focus. Your team will be able to do all those things together, right? Because when you're facing an implementation, you have your own team and a third-party team helping you with that implementation. And your own team also has a daily work, right? So you have to be very careful on how you manage expectations and how you manage change, right? You have to make sure that your team is embracing change. And sometimes it's not easy to embrace change. So that is one of the things, is having a direction. The other thing is underestimating the complexity of an implementation. It generally takes double what you think, because you don't know what problems you will find until you are doing the work. So you have to create some cushion on, be ready to have some unexpected. So be ready to be unprepared, so to speak, right? And the other thing is ignoring security risks or compliance risks. That's probably one of the challenges that you cannot ignore, you cannot underestimate. That's why it's really important to have a good discussion with your IT team and with your implementation team or with your vendor. You really need to engage in the conversation, and tell them, look, based on your experience, what are the issues that we can face in this, given our industry, given the nature of the solution, right? Engage in that conversation and you will find a lot of interesting things. And then, you really need to have proper budgeting for that, right? Because if you have an overrun, right, you need to start having conversations about how you need to handle those overruns. And that's why it is very important to have the right project management around the implementation effort, right? And when issues happen, you need to have a discussion to understand where the issue is. Sometimes it's in the implementation team, sometimes it's in your side. And having that understanding is essential to keep the engagement moving forward.
So we like to keep things positive, and what you just said has me wondering, do you have a success story you can share about an IT spend that went exceedingly well when it comes to ROI?
Sure. Luckily, when I was in a company that was very acquisitive, we were buying company M&A activity every year, right? And what happened, we were having all these entities all over the United States with different ERP systems, right? And it was very complex to consolidate all that financial information, having centralized accounting practice, consolidating entities and so on, right? So one of the things that we decided to do was making a global deployment of a single ERP solution to replace every single legacy solution. And it was amazing because that allowed us to have a shared services organization that provided significant savings to the organization as a whole in the United States, because we have a set of accountants using the same accounting system, using the same processes, the same policies. So it was great for consistency of practices and so on.
No, that's a great story. And I mean, we talk a lot about ERP modernization and integrations and what we do at RTS, so that aligns exactly with what we do. So there is power in that. For our viewers, there is power. What are some trends you see impacting enterprises when it comes to technology and expenditure over the next 5 years?
Well, I guess that there are a fair amount of things that we need to consider for the next coming years. Number one is AI, right? Every time that you have a new solution that you're considered to implement in your company, you have to consider, or you have to ask your vendor, how AI is going to be embedded in your product. I've been asking that question every time that I have a new ERP solution, right? And some companies already embedded AI in their solutions. Some others are in the process of embedding AI in their solutions. So it will clearly have an effect in the next coming years. The next is cloud computing, right? Cloud is cloud for the platform, which can be Azure, AWS, and so on, right? And also the solutions that generally will be on a SaaS basis. We all know the benefits and the convenience of operating in the cloud, right? The other thing is cybersecurity, as we discussed before, right? You have to be protected. And it's not only with the measures that the software has, but also training your own people on cybersecurity. The other thing is Internet of Things. I guess that, if it is applicable to your business, you need to consider how you integrate those smart devices and other features connected to the system, right, that you are going to implement.
I definitely hear a lot about those from our clients, and we're definitely marketing solutions for that. So I am in full alignment with what CFOs are looking for. So that means my messaging's right in marketing.
Well, we learn a lot from you and our clients. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, we're very client-centric here at RTS. But to close us out, do you have any pieces of financial wisdom you can share?
I guess that as a CFO, you always need to be open to technology transformation, right? It's not like, okay, I will invest this money in technology transformation and that's it. No, every year there is something that we need to fix. There is something that we need to improve. Could be for our own functions or could be for our business solutions and things that we do for our customers. So you always need to be alert. You always need to be prepared. You always need to have a conversation with the chief technology officers, CIOs, and so on, and with the business. And when it is part of the monthly discussions with the business that I like to have with you and the other line of businesses, let's discuss about technology. Let's discuss about the tools that you have, making sure that they are performing well, making sure that your team has all the tools that they need, and listen to our customers and see what technologies they are looking from us. Because probably, sometimes listening to our customers, we need to go and find a technology that can meet their needs. So, the discussion doesn't end here. It starts here, and it's critical when you are building your budget as well.
And that's great wisdom. And thank you for your time today, Sebastian. I
It was a
appreciate
pleasure.
you. And we will see you all next time on our next episode of Modern Tech and Transformation.